a closer look soon. And before I get really started, I'd like to thank my colleague, Jordan Madre, for helping me behind the scenes tonight. So thank you for your help tonight, Jordan. Appreciate it. As Taylor mentioned, my name is Camille Hunt, and I'm the Senior Registrar at the North Carolina Museum of History. I've been with the museum for over 17 years now, and I thought I'd start by giving you a little bit of information about myself. I'm gonna share my screen here. All right, so there's a little sneak peek at some of the artifacts we're going to be looking at. And here's where I start talking a little bit about myself. So I have a BA in history from Radford University in Radford, Virginia, and an MS in museum science from Texas Tech University in Lubbock, Texas. And as I was getting my history degree in college, I was a little unsure what I was going to do with my degree. My mom was an English teacher, and I knew that I did not have her patience and calm demeanor. So I was pretty sure that teaching was not the best option for me. And I briefly thought about law school, but the idea of being a lawyer in a courtroom was terrifying. So I decided that wasn't right either. I was taking a lot of art history classes in college. And one day I was walking through the art building and I saw a flyer on the bulletin board that said, "Would you like to work in a museum? Take the museum studies practicum." And I thought, wow, I would love to work in a museum. So I signed up for the practicum, and I knew right away that this is what I wanted to do with my life. I always feel so thankful that I'm in a career that I find passionate and that I find fulfilling as well. So I got an internship, and I took the practicum and worked at the museum on campus. I worked various jobs to save money for graduate school. And it was at graduate school that I found my true calling for collections management. Taking care of and keeping track of artifacts is really amazing. And I like to point out my Proud Museum Person t-shirt here. I am indeed a proud museum person. My first official job was as collections manager at the National Cowgirl Museum and Hall of Fame in Fort Worth, Texas. It was a really wonderful, interesting collection. They have everything from saddles to outfits to really anything you can imagine relating to cowgirls. And they really take the idea of the cowgirl to mean literally and figuratively. So it's like the spirit of the cowgirl. So you would have artists who are inducted into the Hall of Fame, and of course, like barrel racers and ranchers. And it was just a really inspiring place to work. But I missed the East Coast, and I was eager to be closer to my family. So I moved here to Raleigh in 2003, and I've been working at this museum since then. So now let's get talking about the exhibit. This is a really rather auspicious time to be doing this program, because it was just 245 years ago yesterday that North Carolinians signed the Halifax Resolve, which was basically the first official action of the colonies to go for independence from Great Britain. And the Halifax Resolves paved the way for the revolution just 3 months later. So now on to the exhibit and the artifacts. So again, here, North Carolina was the first colony to officially call for independence from Great Britain. And it was home to an early Patriot victory, even before the Halifax Resolves, on February 27th, 1776, at the Battle at Moores Creek Bridge in Curry, North Carolina. This is part of the exhibit that you can't see behind me, but it's just behind me over here. The regulators were a group of back county farmers who became increasingly angry with the royal colonial government based in the East. They disliked what they believed were unfair taxes, illegal fees, and corrupt officials. They called themselves regulators because they wanted the power to regulate their own lives. When peaceful protests failed, the regulators disrupted courts and attacked local officials. Events came to a head in 1771 when Governor William Tryon led militia troops to victory over the regulators in a battle near Alamance Creek. And this is a regulator handbell that we have in our collection. And tradition says that they used this bell to call forces at the Battle of Alamance. And that bell is behind me in the exhibit here. Unfortunately, it's a little bit too big and heavy to pull from the exhibit to do a show and tell. We tried that a few months ago, and it was just, it's awkward. It's about, I don't know, it's bigger than you can see in the screen. It's a good size bell, and it's heavy too. So just the thought of people ringing the bell for battle was intriguing to me. This is a beautiful punch bowl. Many North Carolinians played an important part in the events leading to the Revolution. Dislike of taxation brought about the 1774 Edenton Tea Party, where Edenton women pledged not to buy British tea and other goods. Winifred Hoskins, secretary of the Edenton Tea Party, owned this punch bowl. You can see it dates to about 1765 or 1775. This bowl is really, it's amazing to me that it still exists and it's in pretty good condition. You can, if you look at the picture, you can see a crack towards the back of the bowl, which is not bad for it being as old as it is. It's also pretty good size, so I was uncomfortable pulling it from the exhibit. But rest assured, I do have a few artifacts to do a close-up show and tell for you. And here we get to our first ones. The Edenton Tea Party, again, we just mentioned, Penelope Barker, who presided over the signing of the Edenton Resolves, may have owned this tea caddy, and it dates back to 1774. And the other caddy descended in the family of mother and daughter, and both women signed the resolves. I'm going to briefly stop sharing my screen now so I can hold up the tea caddies. And the one that's blue and white with the gold trim is really amazing because the neck is still intact and we have the lid. So I'm going to pull that one up first. So if you see close, you can see the design on it. Flip it around so you can see the bottom. And if you notice, you can see the neck. This is what's really cool, is that the neck is still intact. They're very fragile. And we also have the lid or the cap for it. It's a little harder to hold up, but you can see it there. The other tea caddy that we have is, you can see what usually happens, the neck has broken off and is missing. But again, considering the age of these artifacts, that the paint is still so vibrant, it's really quite cool. All right, I'm gonna share again. I thought I'd talk a little bit about how we store and track these various artifacts. Each artifact in the museum has a unique identifying number known as an accession number and a permanent location. Even when an artifact is on exhibit, we always know where things are. And these are some photos of where these tea caddies are stored usually. You can see a locked cabinet there on the left. That cabinet is in a locked storage room and is again locked in storage. And that's where we keep some of our most fragile artifacts. We also have compact moving storage, which you see in the middle photo. That's similar to, like, some libraries have those. It allows us to maximize our space. And then the last photo is of one of the open shelves. You can see the rows and we stack boxes. Those gray boxes are known as Lewis boxes, and they're made of a hard plastic that allows us to stack them without danger of anything being crushed. The next artifact I'm going to talk about is this Halifax key. This key unlocked the building in Halifax where the 4th Provincial Congress signed the Halifax Resolves on April 12, 1776, which authorized a vote for independence. And this key it's pretty cool. I'm going to hold it up so you can see how large it is. If I can. You see, it's about a foot long, roughly. I'll hold it up to the camera so you can see the shape. Flip it around so you can see the other end. It's pretty neat. And these artifacts are all currently on exhibit. So if you come to the museum, you'll see them. And these are gloves that were worn by Samuel Alexander of Burke County. He reportedly wore these at Ramser's Mill in 1780. These gloves are, they're really similar to the gloves I'm wearing right now, which I wear to protect the artifacts. So we have to be extra careful that we don't mix them up. That's kind of a joke, we never would, but I feel like I needed to clarify. I'm gonna hold them up as well. Here's one of them. And it's interesting, these are actually quite large for the time. We've noticed over the years that often gloves from various time periods are much smaller than my hand. And in particular, we had a glove that was worn by a Civil War sailor. And I removed it from exhibit, and I just remember being like, wow, his hands are really tiny, you know, because I actually took a picture of my hand next to the glove and thought I would destroy that glove if I tried to put it on, which again, we never would, but. And here's a little of how we stored gloves and other textiles. You can see the row of shelves. This is in our textile storage area. And again, we have the stacking plastic boxes and the industrial shelving that really allows us to maximize our space from floor to ceiling. And that's one thing that most museums face a similar problem is we are at critical mass with storage. Museums cannot collect indefinitely, even though that's our mission. It's hard to collect and collect and collect without expanding your building, which is not as easy as as we would like it to be. So you can see there, the other image is the open box where these gloves were stored. And if you notice that pink slip there, this is another way of how we track our artifacts. The pink slip indicates that the artifact has been removed from its permanent location. So if someone looks up the gloves on our database and they see the location and they go there, they would see that pink slip and be like, oh, it was removed. But ideally, in our database, we have two fields. We have current location and permanent location. So ideally, the current location would indicate where it is, which would be this exhibit. And then the permanent location will say it's permanent home, which is the storage room. And next we have this wooden plate made by Captain John Dickerson during the Civil War. And he used this plate too. I'm going to leave the picture up for just a minute so you can see the cross stitch used to repair the plate, which is kind of mind-blowing since it's made out of wood. I find that really interesting, and I'm going to hold up the plate now so you can see it, hopefully a little closer. See that cross stitch? And this plate also has some paper tags on it, which were likely put on by family members. And there you can see that's the accession number that we placed on the artifact. Every artifact, within reason, has a permanent, in quotes, permanent accession number applied to it. We always want it to be reversible. There are times when we've had to change the accession number to, if an item goes on exhibit, sometimes the accession number is visible. So we'll remove it and then place it on a different spot. But also sometimes I'm a fan of letting people see accession numbers because that's part of the museum world. And it's likely associated with the artifact. I mean, not likely, it is associated with the artifact from the time it is permanently accessioned until it's gone from the museum, which most often is never, because we keep things in perpetuity. So this powder horn was used by Joel Lane, and you may be familiar with the Joel Lane house in Raleigh. That's a great historic house. If you've never visited, I encourage you to do so. It's really an amazing little house. And this powder horn, again, you can see the intricate design, and I don't know, it's just, I love the time that people took, the artistry that they put into things that were used to carry essentially ammunition. Hold the powder horn up so you can see the design. And I talked to our artifact conservator today to ask what kind of horn may have been used. And she said it was likely a bull, because that's what was most widely available. And the size fit for her. It made sense. And here's a little an image of how we track and store the powder horns. You can see we have a few powder horns in our collection. We have more than that's in this box, but you see the box, you see the boxes within the box, you see the tissue paper. We use all acid-free materials, so that tissue paper is acid-free, that blue board is acid-free. And that just allows us to help preserve things for generations to come. And you can see the pink slips also. 2 things from this box are gone. Not gone, just in another location. And then we have this sword used by Captain James Moore of New Hanover County. He may have used this sword, and it dates back to 1770 to 1790. I did not pull this from the exhibit because it's a little awkward to handle, and a lot of our swords are secured to their mounts with monofilament, which is something, or fishing line, which is something we often use. And here's some pictures of our sword storage room. Swords usually get custom storage boxes since they're uniquely shaped. You can see on the right how each sword is supported with a customized slot in the box. And it holds the sword, and they're often braced at the hilt. And it allows us to store, 4 or 5 swords in a box. And this material is pretty strong too, so stacking them is not a problem. And that yellow sheet you see in the box is an artifact inventory sheet, or a box inventory sheet. And every box in the pictures that you've seen previously and in this photo, every box has an inventory sheet like that. So if we're looking for an artifact, we can quickly check the inventory sheet to verify that it's in there. And usually that system works perfectly. All right, now I'm going to share a video that we made about 8 years ago now that features a lot of these artifacts. This is a fun video. Kids, it's geared towards kids, but I like to show it because it shows us a lot about the artifacts. And also I like to think that we did this 8 years ago, like I said, and it's good. I think the technology is good, and we are doing so much digital output right now that it'd be kind of fun to redo the video to see how we could do it. All right, I'm gonna see if I can find this. I'm assuming you've all been in a bunch of Zoom meetings, so it's okay if someone is fumbling a little bit. Okay, here we go. Can y'all hear that? Okay. Well, today's your big day, everyone. Going on display to help tell the story of North Carolina. Are you talking to the artifacts now? No. It's only a problem if they talk back. They were like, hey guys, all of you, lock your lips. Look at me. I am critical, you know. Key to this exhibit
about as useful as the lone sock in the dryer. You're a lockless monster, get it? Lockless monster? Hey, Punchy, give me some room or I'm gonna bowl you over. Get it? Oh.
Very funny. One sightly spherical slab of bag. You can just roll yourself into a ditch. I need room to display my lovely design. They still look fresh, don't they? Not bad for 200 years.
My thoughts exactly, as applied to me, of course. Just look at these Nanking-like decorations, Oriental, you know, and the gold decor of my shoulders.
Mark my words, you will be the death of me with your prattling and make room for me. I have the imprint of royalty. George III of Great Britain, you know.
You don't have a lick of sense. We were the death of you, silly, pretentious rag.
Why, whatever do you mean? I am the representative of His Majesty King George III, and all of you should acknowledge my significance.
Mark this, sir. I was there when folks here in North Carolina and throughout the 13 colonies decided not to pay for your imprint on anything. I belong to the Hussies family, Richard and Winifred Hussey, exactly, and they were active in their support of the patriot.
Well, you silly agitators, I helped pay for many necessities for the British Empire. I'm sure they benefited the colonies. Some stamps actually helped pay for that war. The French and Indian War fought on behalf of the colonies, remember?
What I remember is that good citizens refused to pay to keep British soldiers in America, taxed by faraway parliament, without a say in how those tax monies would be spent. Why, some of these patriots gathered round me from time to time, enjoying a glass or three of punch. They helped protest against the Stamp Act of 1769.
Well, I never.
Never indeed. In North Carolina, the Stamp Act was never enforced, not a single time. Good citizens celebrated, and Parliament repealed the hated law in 1766.
Well, I am part of the Bonner family, also of Eaton. Yes, Miss Mary and Miss Lydia took good care of me. You know, I was employment, whether filled to the brim or empty.
Oh, filled to the brim with what? Hot air?
No, you bland ball of blunder. I was used to store that most precious of commodities, tea. This made me indispensable, as you well know. Everyone loved their tea, until they didn't. That onerous tax on tea, again without giving the colonists a voice in how those taxes were to be spent, was unbearable, intolerable, in fact.
Still, you can't really say you belong to ladies, given what all you did.
Well, perhaps you would be so kind as to jump or roll off a cliff. Of course, my owners were ladies brave enough to do what no other women had done before. And
Stop talking?
no, you rotund sphere. They stopped the pernicious custom of drinking tea that was unfairly taxed, joining with 49 other ladies of Eaton. Miss Lydia and Miss Mary signed the October 25th, 1774 resolves, forgoing such purchases of British goods like tea and cloth, until such time that all acts which tend to enslave our native country shall be repealed.
That spins things around now, doesn't it? Just like I got things rolling in February 1776, when I propelled those pesky loyalists away and kept North Carolina in patriot hands.
Hey man, what did you do? Beat him at 10 pins?
You loser, Lever. I'm a cannonball, you know. Powder, light, fire, boom. At the Battle of Moores Creek Bridge, I and a few patriots led by Colonel Richard Caswell and Colonel Alexander Lillington helped run those Scottish Highlanders and lousy loyalists off, keeping them from meeting up with the Brits in Wilmington. They had to sail away, leaving North Carolina ready for revolution.
Sure, dude. Swell. But look at me. I unlocked the path of the whole nation when on April 12, 1776, North Carolina's 4th Provincial Congress, some rockin' patriots for sure, met in Halifax in my building. They voted to authorize North Carolina's delegates to the Continental Congress, you know, Thomas Jefferson and those dudes, to vote for independence. This was the first official action by an American colony calling for independence.
Oh, bother all that. At least I win in rock, paper, scissors.
Never mind that. I guess together we tell quite the story. Our owners,
Our ties to the past,
And, our connections to today.
I sure hope lots of people come to the North Carolina Museum of History to look at me.
Well, ladies first, I suppose. Here we go.
Hey, you gotta buy me a drink first. Don't scratch the paint.
Are you the gatekeeper? I am.
Anyone for some tea or some crumpets? Should be thankful
All right. All right, so that's all I have for the presentation. I hope you enjoyed the artifacts I showed you and the little behind the scenes tour of the museum. That's one thing I really miss about COVID times. I miss a lot of things, but one of the things I miss is being able to do behind the scenes tours, because it really is a chance to let people know all of the great things that go on that you don't get to see in a museum. We're busy workers downstairs. We have designers and carpenters building things, and registrars and artifact handlers and conservators who all work every day to help bring these artifacts to you all. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, so I do have some questions for you. The first is, how large is the regulator bell?
The regulator bell is, let's see, it is about 1 foot 2.5 inches tall. I'm not sure of the width, but I'd say probably 6 or 7 inches. Yeah, it's big. Yeah.
It's quite large. One alumna marveled that it was amazing that some of the tea caddies, that first tea caddy had lasted for so long. We had a couple of questions about the gloves, which is funny because I remember the last time I saw this presentation with you, people were also very curious about the gloves.
Yeah.
So both were inquiring about what they were made of.
Yeah, I'm gonna see if I pulled that white deer skin, reinforced with 3 lines of herringbone embroidery on the knuckles, wrist length, no decorations or adornment. Yeah, so deer skin.
So would that have been like a common material for them to use in this part of the state?
Yeah.
World, I guess. Okay.
Yeah. And I think, yeah.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think someone mentioned like with the size of them, they were probably riding gloves or some kind of gloves that would go over some other gloves. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna, Jordan's gonna help me answer questions.
So the next question was about the wooden plate, and if there was any idea of who did the cross stitch or when that when it acquired that cross stitch.
Yeah, I'm gonna pull that and see. So this has a lot of well, it just says this plate has suffered loss to the rim over the years, and a crack developed almost half the diameter in length. It was repaired with a heavyweight thread using cross stitching. It doesn't say when that might have happened, but this piece, I'm going to read the provenance and how the piece was passed down and how it came to us. So it says, according to the provenance provided by a note from the donor's grandfather, this plate was made by Captain John Dickerson of North Carolina while serving in the Revolutionary War. The donor goes on to relate the family history of the piece. Dickerson gave it to his daughter, Penelope Dickerson, who married Richard Backus. Her initials, PB, appear on the back of the plate. Mrs. Backus then gave the plate to her daughter, Margaret, who married William Whitby, and then gave it to Dr. W.B. Barnum of Southampton County, Virginia. Dr. William B. Barnum gave gave the plate to his daughter, Catherine Carter Barham, who married the donor, James Miller Smith of Petersburg and Big Stone Gap, Virginia. So that's probably one of the clearest lines of possession we have for an artifact in our collection, which is really cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so the stickers that the paper stickers, the labels that are on there, are those were already there, you said, when you all received that. And does that sort of tell that story in there?
It does, yeah. And basically what I read to you is the sticker that's on the back of the plate or the front, it's unclear. The other sticker is a little hard to read. It's been damaged by water. You can make out that it says from W period, and then it gets a little blurry. And then I think it says Newsome's something. Yeah, we have a close-up picture of it, but it's still, I'll hold this up so you can, it's still kind of hard to read. But yeah, and that plate is interesting because the adhesions came on with the plate and we would not remove those. Sometimes, we question whether or not, what's the historical integrity of the object. And these were obviously placed on by family members or someone. So we're not going to remove them because it's part of the history of the object.
Yeah.
We faced a lot of challenges like that, actually.
So the thread that's on that, is that just like a standard like cotton thread, or?
It says heavyweight thread. Yeah, if anyone wants to know, you can feel free to email me. I'll ask our objects conservator and or textile conservator to see if they know. Because it could be like sinew or I'm not even sure. Could be almost anything, but I can try and find out.
So interesting that someone would stitch together a wooden plate.
Yeah.
Okay, then, so the next question was actually mine. The engraving on that Joel Lane powder horn, is there any significance to the symbols? I know there's like a Celtic knot.
Yeah. Let's see. Our description just says intertwining circles and stylized flower motif. Let's see if there's any. I imagine there probably is. Let me hold that up again so someone might have some insight. Here you can see the design on my hairs.
Yeah, so amazing.
That looks like right there looks.
Mm-hmm. And I guess that front is what they're considering a flower, maybe?
Yeah. And there's some design around the edge here.
Oh, yeah.
And even at the end, there's kind of looks like the top of an acorn. That part does.
So I saw you all have a pretty good sized collection of powder horns. I mean, several. Are a lot of them engraved like that or carved like that, or are most of them plain?
Most of them are plain. Yeah, there's very few that are as elaborate as that.
Yeah. And
then speaking of our powder horn collection, several years ago, I had a visit from some gentlemen who were part of the Powder Horn Quarterly. And they came to the museum to see a selection of powder horns. And there was an article in the journal and my photo was in there with them. And I think that's the only time my picture has been in any kind of publication. So it's kind of cool that it was the Powder Horn Quarterly.
Oh, that's funny. Okay, so now, well, one alumnus said that was a big bell for someone to go around ringing.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
Quite large. So the next questions are more about the museum in general. The school classes normally come to the museum on field trips, and I guess a follow-up, are students coming right now with COVID?
Yeah, not right now. We're not sure when school groups will start again. I think we're hopeful that maybe next fall or next spring. School groups are a big chunk of our visitors, and we gear a lot of our exhibits and content towards them to meet the curriculum points. And we've been really missing our student visits.
Yeah. And then the final question I have in the chat is, how did your museum gain or come into contact with all of these items? Is there supplier resources that museums use?
our curators, I should say, our curators are the ones who generally collect the objects, and then my job in my department, we accept them when they come in and keep track of them. Although we have been known to actually find some artifacts on our own, but we always run them by the curators. Usually families will contact the museum and say, hey, I have something in my attic, in my basement, in my barn, or lovingly packed in a crate or a trunk that's preserved, beautifully. That's really how we find most of our things. There are occasional times when we purchase items, but those are usually furniture or textiles like costumes and clothing. But again, that's rare. We do have a series called How We Got That that highlights certain collections and how they came into the museum. You can find those on our social media, on YouTube or on Facebook, or wherever you follow the museum.
Awesome. So I'll give, for those, I know some of you may not have access to your chat. So if anybody else has a question, feel free to unmute yourself and ask Camille. We have a few more minutes if anyone has anything.
Yeah.
I really am curious about school children visiting the museum. When do they study North Carolina history? What age are the kids who come to the museum?
I think I don't have children of my own, so I'm not really familiar with the curriculum ages, but I think it's like, we see a lot of middle schoolers, like 4th grade. Yeah. Yeah.
Fourth grade
Okay.
is the grade that they study North Carolina history, because I volunteer as a docent at the Capitol. So
Nice.
yeah, so I'm missing all that too. So.
Yeah. And the museum has been reopened to the public since September 10th. And we take great caution. We have hand sanitizer everywhere, and there's social distancing, and we're still only allowing 30% capacity in the museum. And I think that's about 300 people. So it's really quite safe. And also face coverings are required, including by staff. So we wear masks around the building, and yeah. Mine is.
So do you have an exhibit about the Croatan settlement?
Do we? Croatan? I think there's some information about it in the early part of this story of North Carolina. Yeah. Very brief though.
Okay.
Yeah. It's mentioned. Yeah. This exhibit covers about 14,000 years of history. Yeah. In a relatively small space. And we know that we need to add things and update it, considering it ends kind of at the civil rights movement of the 1960s. We ran out of space. That's essentially what happened, yeah.
And the artifacts, I think I remember you saying this, or I've done I've listened to another presentation from a colleague of yours on the quilt collection that the museum has, but you guys rotate out the artifacts. Some stay, but some of them you rotate, right?
Yes, yeah. This exhibit, we try and do rotations every year to 18 months, I'd say. Ideally, we would do them every 6 months, but that's just not realistic with all the other things we have going on. A lot of things get rotated. Like if you see a book, we'll turn the page of the book just so it can be protected from light. And light damage is irreversible and insidious. So our textile conservator would really like it if we could rotate textiles a lot more often. But we have one textile conservator, and we just have limited staff and resources. I'm trying to think of, and like the textiles that do get rotated out, like a dress will be taken out and then another dress will be put in its place. So you don't really take away any content. It's just a different example of the story.
Okay. Yeah. So one alumnus said she would be interested in having your email for future contact, if you're okay with that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's Camille.Hunt, HUNT, at ncdcr.gov. Yeah, feel free. Y'all can email me with questions or concerns.
May I make a comment? My big sister at Meredith, Martha Plowler Tracy, was the educational person.
Yeah, she worked here when I first started. I remember her.
Yes, she has now died,
Yeah,
but she put her wedding in there, which I was, of course, a bridesmaid. So it was really fun to be part of a North Carolina museum because we both were from Virginia. She was from Whaleyville and I was from Richmond.
nice. My parents are in Chesapeake, Virginia, so I'm a Virginian by
I have a
association.
connection more than just Meredith College, but a connection with your museum.
Yeah, that's great. Oh, I also wanted to mention that we have a great associates group, our membership group. They help fund our exhibits and programs and really do a lot for the museum. And I know that Taylor probably will have some information to share with you. We have a membership program discount for Meredith going on right now. So hopefully some of you might be so inclined to help support the museum and all the great things that we do.
Yeah, I do. Camille was kind enough to share that information. So I will send that to you all, the link in the email, and that'll be good until Friday. Is that right, Camille? So it's a 50% off the museum membership for the year. There are several levels. It's a great perk, even those of you that aren't local anymore.
And because there's one level of membership that will get you reciprocal membership at museums across the country. And I don't know exactly what museums participate, but there's a link that you can click on to check that. That's a great value. It really is.
Yeah. Well, it's 6:45, and unless anyone else has anything else to ask Camille, I will thank you so much. It was very enjoyable, and I've had so many people email me like thanking you for being willing to do this. So sincerely thank you from all of us at Meredith, and I hope that you guys will go visit the museum if you're here in Raleigh.
Awesome. I just see my intern popped up. That's awesome. Jenna.
I love that. I see her comment.
Yeah, that was so great.
All right.
Thank you all so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so I'm going to stop the recording.
Okay.